Hey everybody, in today's video, we're going to look at Dorian Yates from 1997 versus Phil Heath from 2020 in the second episode of Worst of the Best. Many people know that the 1997 version of Yates was his worst version. However, it is kind of debatable whether or not Phil Heath was at his worst in 2018 or 2020. However, I chose to go with the 2020 version because I feel that he was the most downsized. Whoever wins this comparison will go up against Jay Cutler's 2013 version, and that will be in a new video. Whoever wins that video will be considered the best, worst of the best bodybuilder. Moving into the first shot, the front double bicep pose, Dorian Yates looks pretty bad in the arm department. Now, I talked about this in a previous video on Dorian Yates, but as you guys can clearly see, his arms are really torn and just melted away here. Phil Heath, on the other hand, has amazing arms here, and I honestly think that his arms just continue to get better throughout his career. Now, Dorian Yates' lats are better than Phil Heath's, and Phil Heath is more narrow than Dorian Yates. If we look at the legs, I think that Phil Heath may have bigger legs, but Dorian Yates may be more separated. Now, the midsections on both men are not that great. However, I would probably give the front double bicep to Phil Heath because he has a more complete physique. The front lat spread is an amazing shot for Dorian Yates. Phil Heath, on the other hand, while he was able to pull a relatively good front lat spread off back in his prime, he really does not look good here whatsoever. Dorian Yates is wide through the clavicles, has amazing lats, and just has a very overall good physique in this shot. He is very ripped and conditioned, and his midsection looks rather good as well. His arms do not look very torn and look very complete here. His shoulders look great. You can see striations through the shoulders. His chest looks really big and full, and his legs, quads specifically, and calves look tremendous. Phil Heath's calves are really good too, and his quads look good as well, but his midsection, along with mediocre lats and overpowering arms, do not help him in this pose, and I'm going to give the win to Dorian Yates. The side chest shot is a hard shot for me to judge because they are hitting it a little bit differently. Taking a look at Dorian, he presents a relatively good package here. His far pec is very striated and his front pec looks full and big. He just doesn't have the same development in the arms that Phil Heath presents here, and Phil Heath has some very conditioned, full and round arms. His shoulders look good, his arms, biceps and triceps, brachialis forearms look humongous and big and full, and he just looks great in the arm department. Now, if we look at the chest itself, his arms are definitely overpowering his chest, and when I say he, I'm talking about Phil Heath here. But Phil Heath's chest does look very good and full as well, and it is ripped if we look at the far pec. Neither man is impressing me too much in the leg department, and like I said before, it's really hard to judge this shot because it's taken at different angles. But we do know that Dorian Yates would be smashing Phil Heath in the calf department, even though Phil Heath really isn't a slouch in the calf department. I'd probably give Phil Heath a slight edge in this pose because I think he has a better upper body and very similar level of conditioning and leg development. The side tricep pose is a shot that both men were known for hitting extremely well in their prime. Both men look really good here, and they look reminiscent of their prime versions. I will say that Phil Heath has an advantage in the tricep. It is striated and bigger than Dorian Yates's, but Dorian Yates is hitting the pose in a more artistic fashion, and I really like that. The midsections on both men look very similar here, and they protrude out just very slightly. Now, the conditioning in the legs look very similar as well. Dorian Yates seems to have a rock-hard and granite-like conditioning, while Phil Heath's legs look pretty conditioned as well. Now, I'd probably give Phil Heath the advantage in the upper body because his chest looks bigger than Dorian Yates's, and his shoulders seem to be more striated. However, I really do like the way that Dorian Yates is hitting this pose, so that may get him an edge as well. It's a very hard call, but if I had to award a point, I'd probably give it to Phil Heath because he has a better tricep. The back poses will be interesting to judge because Dorian Yates' back continued to get better over time, while Phil Heath's back kind of, got worse over time. Taking a look at this rear lat spread, I'll start at the calves, and Dorian Yates is crushing Phil Heath in the calf department here. They are just massive like steaks. Now, Phil Heath does make up some ground having drier hamstrings than Dorian Yates, but Dorian Yates has some very good hamstrings too, and the glutes are a tie in my opinion. Now, if we look at the backs themselves, Dorian Yates is crushing Phil Heath in that department. Dorian Yates has an amazing back here, thickness overall is tremendous, and the lats flare out like crazy. The arms are definitely downsized and broken, but arms don't play a big factor in a shot like this. Phil Heath, on the other hand, has amazing arms from the back. But having amazing arms from the back and a, narrow back itself doesn't help at all in this pose. And while his back is dense and grainy, it just isn't big at all. Dorian Yates is crushing him in the back department. Now, their legs may be similar in terms of conditioning and size, but I'm going to give Dorian Yates the point because he is really just dominating this rear lat spread. Phil Heath fares better in the rear double bicep shot because he has better arms and looks to be in better conditioning in the arms. Dorian Yates has terrible arms here, his biceps and triceps are just melted away. But his back is phenomenal here. I mean, his back from head to toe looks amazing, thick, dense, and huge. Phil Heath, on the other hand, has a back that is just kind of dwindled away from its past self and doesn't look as good as it ever used to, not being as full or as thick or as wide. Now, the legs are very similar, but I'd probably give Dorian Yates an advantage in the hamstrings, an advantage in the calves, and it's very similar in the glute department, similar conditioning. Now, even though Dorian Yates has terrible arms in this shot, I think his back is just so much, so much of a force in this shot. So I'm going to give the shot to Dorian Yates because his back is just so much better than Phil Heath's. And the arms, while being downsized, still don't look horrible. In the abs and thigh shot, I think it is very clear that Dorian Yates is beating Phil Heath handily. He has wider clavicles, wider lats, a better midsection, and a tighter one relative to his wide lats and clavicle width, and his legs look very big here, but he doesn't seem to be flexing his quads all too well in this shot. But his calves, he's flexing those very well, and they look amazing. Phil Heath's calves look pretty good here, and they don't look all too bad, and his quads look tremendous. Phil Heath is really flexing his quads very well, and his legs look fabulous. Now, as we go up, his midsection is really bad here, and it looks like it's protruding in all sorts of directions. It's very unaesthetic, and even though it is relatively small, it's just not very pleasing to look at. Now, if we look at his lats, they just don't flare out the same way that they used to back in, 2011, 2013, even like 2018. His arms look good in this pose, but that doesn't matter really. And he's very narrow, which creates absolutely zero or just a very little amount of V taper in this shot. Even though Phil Heath is in very good condition and looks, not terrible. I mean, he looks very bad, but not horrendous. I'm still giving this to Dorian Yates very easily. The most muscular shot is an easy win for Phil Heath because Phil Heath is a complete bodybuilder. And when I say complete, I mean that Phil Heath has a complete set of arms. I mean, he has the shoulders, the biceps, and the triceps, and the forearms. Now, Dorian Yates has the shoulders and the forearms not as good as Phil Heath, but he does not have the biceps, nor does he have the triceps. They are just melted and torn away. Now, the midsection, I'd give to Dorian Yates. I mean, he has a better midsection, like we just saw in the abs and thigh, but Phil Heath has a denser chest, bigger arms, and honestly, probably better legs from the front here, even though Dorian Yates' legs look really good. I'm going to give this shot to Phil Heath. He looks amazing in the most muscular. I think he always will look good in this shot, and yeah, he just takes this shot very handily. To end this video and this comparison, I'll go over who I had winning which pose, and you guys can see that up on the screen right now. I had Yates winning the front lat spread, the rear lat spread, the rear double bicep, and the abs and thigh shot, while I had Heath winning the front double bicep, the side chest, the side tricep, and the most muscular shots, which means that the final score is 4-4 and the winner is inconclusive. Because I promised a video between Jay Cutler 2013 versus the winner of this video, I think what I have to do is make a comparison between the two gentlemen in this video versus the 2013 version of Jay Cutler. Or what I can also do is post a poll in my community tab and ask you guys who you thought would have won this comparison. Of course, whoever wins that comparison between Jay Cutler 2013 and whoever you guys choose in the poll will be crowned the best, worst versions of the best bodybuilders out there. Now, if you guys want to see a comparison between other, worst versions of the best bodybuilders or other video ideas, let me know in the comments. If you liked the video, please consider liking and subscribing. It really means a lot to me. And I want to say thank you for staying around to the end. And it's been a pleasure making this video. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one. Goodbye.